Hi guys, in this video we're going to be teaching you everything a beginner needs to know about AK Interactive Streaking Grime. What is it? How does it work? Why is it known as Grimdark Talent in a Bottle? Let's see, let's jump in. Hi guys, my name is Brian, welcome to another Artis Opus video. Sorry for the hiatus that we've had since our last one, more about that at the end. For now, let's jump into a explanation and tutorial on AK Interactive Streaking Grime. So this is well known, especially in the Grimdark movement, for it's kind of treated like Devil and Mud, but for Grimdark. Think of it like that. You can put it all over a model with very little downside, and you will instantly get a pretty cool effect. So what I'm going to be doing is running through some of the properties of it, what it is, where it's come from, and how do you use it, and then also some little tips and tricks to make sure that you can get the best out of it the fastest. We're going to finish up with me just putting it on some already finished models, which I've done to previously on the channel, so you don't even need to start new models again for this. And I'm just going to see if I can, grimdark them in one go. Should be possible, especially if I build a base for them that looks fairly grimdarky, so we'll have to see how that goes. Should be a lot of fun though, and it is very, very fast and extremely fun and very different, so let's jump in. Okay, so what is Streaking Grime? As any historical painters, or most painters these days out there will know, for those of you who haven't been living under a rock, Streaking Grime is an amazing pre-mixed enamel wash. Now you can make your own enamel washes or your own oil washes and stuff like that, of course, absolutely fine, but I choose to not make my own paints. Sometimes I may make my own washes, but I do enjoy just having an out-of-the-bottle solution in Streaking Grime. Another question, which I think is quite difficult because people just call it Streaking Grime. There are multiple Streaking Grimes available, so if I go to my left, I've got several products here. 3 of them have got Streaking Grime written on the bottle. This one also has Streaking Grime on the bottle and is the one that you should see as the original. So it's just called Streaking Grime Enamel Color for all vehicles. That's the text you want to check at the bottom. This is the generic kind of sepia toned one that is so well known and well loved, and that is the default. There's different ones for different applications. For now, let's just restrict it to this, and then you can look at the others another time if you're interested. Okay, so how do you use it? Quickly, very briefly, I'm going to tell you how it was intended to be used by the historical community, and then I'm going to tell you how the fantasy community has adapted it for our own use, which is a much more kind of all-over holistic view of it. So it was designed to do little dots and streaks, as the name suggests, running down from rusty rivets on tanks, that type of thing. So you put a little dot here or draw a little line here, and then because it's a reductive technique, you put down the product rather than adding additive. It's a reductive technique, so you pop it down, wait for it to dry, and then you remove it using spirits or removers, and then what is left is a very naturalistic effect because there's been a back and forth, so it's a brilliant way to add age to a model. Now, the fancy community got hold of this, and rather than applying it, I'm very tired. Rather than applying it with a size 2 brush in very, or 00 or tiny, little delicate streaks, they got out their big brushes or their airbrushes, finished a model and coated the entire thing, and then you use a much more kind of like a buffing technique to remove it from all of the raised areas, leaving it in all of the recesses. Now, that's a filter over an entire model rather than specific areas of weathering, and it's got a very, very distinctive, pretty cool effect. It's very fast as well because it's an all-over technique, and it's a lot like coating your entire model in Devil and Mud or something like that, but then being allowed to remove it, which is the interesting bit and the extremely forgiving bit, because if something goes wrong, you're planning on removing it anyway. So it's a very forgiving and fun technique as a result of that, and very different to anything you've done before. People get quite worried about it, so let's jump into the main thing that people worry about when using Streaking Grime. Okay, so the number one question anyone would have is something like this, because it's not a traditional acrylic wash, it's an enamel one. Scary, am I going to strip my models? Will I ruin my models? No, you won't. Now, you don't actually need to varnish your model for light use, but I think you should always, not necessarily for protection issues, but for ease of use. So what I'm talking about here is you're using it's a reductive technique. So you're gonna take it off, and rather than just adding more and more and more. So the shinier the surface it goes onto, or the finish, the varnish, the more easily it will come off. What you need to think about here is imagine spilling paint on a piece of glass, or spilling it on a cushion or dropping magenta ink all over your desk, your trousers and your socks in my case. One of those is going to be a lot easier to clean up, and that's going to be the one that goes onto a glass surface. Super glossy, and you can just, it's actively retarding the paint. The paint will dry very slowly on it, that type of stuff. So it's super easy to remove. So I think you should put down a varnish because it just makes everything else easier. And the more glossy the varnish, the more that you could remove. So let's say if you put it down on a matte varnish, you can remove like 85% of it. I think it probably goes all the way through to like high 90%. So if you put it on a gloss varnish, on how much you can remove. It will always leave a little tiny bit of a filter that you can't get away unless you're using some ultra gloss, perfect shiny finish. So do hold that in mind if you're putting it over white, for example. But the shinier it is, the more easy it is to remove, and the more of it you can remove as a percentage, up to almost 100% removal. Okay, so the next question, am I going to ruin my models? No, absolutely not. We've protected them with a varnish. How am I going to apply it to my model? Easy answer, however you like and however you can. So you can do it by airbrush, pretty convenient, pretty fast, and it kind of dries as it goes. So that will affect the drying time. I'll come to that later. You can pop it down by brush. Maybe you'll need a couple of layers for this. It does mean that you can put drifts of it where you want with a brush. So there is actually quite a good argument for airbrushing all over and then putting down more in any areas where you want it particularly heavily. Because you've done it by brush though, because it will pull in some areas, it will take longer to dry. Now my absolute top technique beyond using varnish for streaking grime is to allow for it to dry, not like 100%, but at least to touch dry, so you can touch it without it being removed, so you can't see any huge sheen on it after you've popped it down on the surface you're going to be removing it from. So just be patient, walk away, and you'll be rewarded with a much more controllable substance and a much higher quality end result, generally speaking. So normally about 20 minutes minimum is what I'd leave. You can hairdryer it or something else to speed it up, but at least make sure that you've tried to let it dry before coming back to it, and you will be rewarded. Okay, that is it. They're the top tips. I've kept it fairly simple. This is a complete beginner's guide. There are some fully comprehensive guides out there, including one from AK themselves, another one from someone who's really very knowledgeable from a historical standpoint. I'll link that below. Go and check that out. Loads of info there, really in depth. He's not going to be covering his models in it and having as much fun as we are though. So let's jump straight into that and let's give these guys the grimdark treatment and see how it goes. This video is going to be nothing but top tips at this rate. This is a good top tip though, so especially if you're using this technique to return to old models. We're about to varnish down. We cannot change anything once we varnish, so give them a dust off before you go. Any little fibers in there will look particularly bad with streaking grime involved because the way that will cling to things. So give them a good dust down or give them a blast with an airbrush, just a bit of a jet wash or something like that, just to make sure that they don't have any fibers, hairs, or bits of dusty stuff stuck to them. Quick predictions or concerns or anything like that before going at it. I think this guy should show up really nicely because he's kind of cool and blue and deep, and he's got quite a bit of contrast on him anyway. This is a very warm, browny model as is, so apart from the fact that streaking grime's got a little bit of a green tint to it, maybe it won't show up that much. Maybe it will. Yeah, I guess we'll find out. The shields are going to be a great place to have a look at the differences between how it affects both of these models, so let's jump in. I'm going to be using Monitor and Varnish for here, but as already covered, use whichever ones you like. Patience, peeps. We varnished it, let it dry fully, speed it up if you want, but make sure you've got it all over and that it is fully dry before you rock on with putting on your streaking grime. Okay, so this is definitely a task for a brush that has seen better days. Might have to be slightly more functional than this one though, so poor brush. Alright, so we'll show you popping it down with the brush first, and then I'll do the rest with the airbrush. Either way is absolutely fine. Will take slightly more time to do with a brush. That's not an issue. So get it all over. That's it basically. No more complicated than that. Thin-ish. If you want more of it somewhere, put more of it somewhere. If you want to use a bigger brush, use a bigger muff. Right. Brush, I said brush. You shouldn't record any of this tired. Okay, so regardless of the size of your brush, yeah, just pop it down all over. collect it in any particular areas you would really like it. If you know that you're going to largely be removing it from an area, then to avoid waste, you can put a thinner amount there, you know, anywhere that's sticking out like this cuff. That's going to obviously have a load removed, so I can pop down a super thin layer apart from the recesses there, and there'll be no detriment on the model. Okay, so with that being done, let's have a little look at airbrush application. Okay, so let's pretend we didn't leave our airbrush overnight with the most heavily pigmented white in the industry inside it. Oops. Shout out to Monument. You can just pour straight out the bottle if you want. I've got a little bit of thinner in there beforehand. So, as mentioned, this will dry as you go because you're using an airbrush, and you will get a faster result. The other way is absolutely fine though, it just takes a tiny bit more time, and it's a pretty fast technique anyway, so not a worry. Alright, so just to be really clear, we have completely browned these models. You know, they're all exactly the same colour. They have been coated. We're now going to let them dry. I'm going to leave them, I might hair dry them a bit first just to speed it up, but like I said, we're going to come back in 20 minutes. In the meanwhile, we can try and clean the airbrush. I wonder if we can revive this. Probably not. Okay, so our model's covered in streaking grime. We've let it dry, we've been patient, we've been good. What now? What do you remove it with? And that is a twofold question. What product do we use? What liquid to help it exit? And then what applicator or remover rather do we use to get rid of it? So typical things that people would suggest would be cotton buds, Q-tips if you're American, you know, cloths, toilet roll, whatever it is. Now, it really doesn't matter which thinner you choose to remove it or which thinning product, mineral spirits, you know, white spirit, there's a lot of different names in different countries for the type of stuff. Airbrush thinner, all of those will do a perfectly good job and will do it really, really readily. But the actual cloth or the thing that you're absorbing onto does make a difference. Now for me, one of the main things to avoid is anything that will leave fluff on your model. So let's check this out if we can get the camera to show up. It's literally got fibers already falling off it already. This isn't made to stop fibers from coming off it, it's made to be as absorbent as possible. Now, in our industry, you can buy special cotton buds that don't do that. This is the Tamiya ones, they're amazing. They are a bit more solid, which means that you can achieve hard edge removal with them as well, which is a really nice different trait. However, let's just skip toilet roll altogether. Not a good idea. Obviously, you'll leave fibers behind. If you use a high quality kitchen roll, it probably won't because they're made to not leave fibers behind, to leave shiny surfaces looking shiny, not covered in fluff and stuff. But my number one favorite, this isn't gonna look very fancy because it's not, is this. So this is the type of cloth you get for cleaning glasses or cleaning a webcam, I believe in this case. It's low profile, so the fluffy bits don't stick out and the fluff doesn't come off it. Now this is really important because if you use one that's too fluffy, like my jumper in comparison, for example, it will press its way into the recesses and it will remove the stuff from the recesses, and the entire point of this exercise is to leave stuff in the recesses. So that's one great reason not to do it. If you use something that is actively fluffy like the cotton bud, you're not careful, you can twist to make it a bit less lightly and it'll kind of wrap its fibers around itself, so that can be useful. But you might, you know, remove the thing you want from the recesses and replace it with fluffy crap. So yeah, don't use that stuff, or at least be aware that that is a risk of using it. Twist your cotton buds, use higher quality kitchen roll, that type of thing. Enough waffling, let's put this into practice. So we've got our low profile cloth. There is some, you know, I've got some tissue here if I wanted to use it. Now, if you don't put any thinner on, you can actually still remove a fair bit of this. And depending what effect you're going for, if there's not thinner on something, it won't tear apart the surface as much. You can actually remove with dry paper in this fashion. So let's say you wanted to get a real hard edge. I want to just literally edge highlight my dude. You can already see some fluff that my toilet roll left behind, even though it's dry. That's why you shouldn't use it, guys. But this paper doesn't mull, and with a little bit of patience, look at that. You can achieve some amazing effects. You can also fold it into certain shapes to get into certain areas, and depending how patient you want to be,
you can achieve some pretty awesome results. So that's, you know, a really cool sharp edge highlight achieved there. Let me show you it somewhere else. You can see here, actually, maybe I haven't let it dry enough. Let's go for the chainmail skirt or the rivets. So yeah, that is what a very low profile hard thing will do. Go to cloth. This is my baby. I really, really like working with these. It's tactile, you can feel the model underneath, all the good stuff. And we're just gonna buff it. So no, you know, I've not even put any thinner on here yet, which is possibly because I could have left it to dry for longer. I've left it for about 45 minutes after hair drying it. Look at that. You know, we're working organically here. This is wonderful. And I can feel the model underneath my fingers, which I feel helps me achieve the result I want. I can also use little corners of it and stuff like that. So that's it basically. You can remove however you want. Let's grab one of the hard cotton buds to show you the effect you can get with these. So let's go for the wonderful lion shoulder pad. Look at that. Amazing. So we're leaving a pretty hard drift in the recesses. You can even highlight that hair in that manner. Let's grab a little bit of thinner on this and show you the difference in how it behaves. Just a tiny bit there. Let it soak in. Remove off some excess. Let's see how much more readily this takes it. There we go. Look at that. Whoosh. Straight away. There is the other model. See our silver and our gold section starting to appear, and it's just up to you. Remember, we've put quite a lot on, so you might have to change areas on your cloth. Once you made one area dirty, you can clean these afterwards and get a few uses out of them. There we go. So what I'm going to do, pop on a time lapse, and I'm just going to scrub these to hopefully back to something that we're pretty happy with. Show you once more on the weapon. He's alive. There we go. So again, just leaving it in the recesses, flavouring the entire piece, making it look a little bit older, more worn. Here's that cuff section that I said we didn't need to put too much on. Wonderful. Okay, so I'll pop this on time lapse like I said. I'll let you know how long it takes me. Probably useful information for you. And yeah, let's rock on. Okay, so conclusions. Number one, if you have an easy to build model that you can pull bits off, that's really helpful, and where you don't have to glue stuff, I wouldn't, because access is really important. And if you can use something less specific and more general like this, but just make it so you can get to every area that you'd want to, I think that's the best way to get the best result out of the all over technique. These are wicked. Look at that, the shines remained, but we've just got a real, you know, like rich gravy-like depth to the shadows. I could have put a thinner layer of it on, and then the shadows would be less drifty. They'd have, you know, not as much in there. That would be a more subtle result. But I really had fun using this. I might quickly do one off camera to give it a bash. Yeah, they've turned out great, super fun. Thinner removes less aggressively than the white spirit, the Artis white spirit that I've been using. So, you know, just of note there. But by far and away, my favorite material to use was this one. Worked really well on the scales and stuff like that. The way that I got the most out of it was just folding it into a little kind of corner and then using that as a slightly more solid way, and that helped me get into nooks and crannies with something that was a bit more rigid, as well as popping the shield off and things like that. And the arms, because these are from the starter set, so I barely used any glue on peripheral parts that weren't the torso. So yeah, great rich to them, a richness and a depth to them. Very, very helpful that it's on metallics, because I think there's a real juxtaposition between the two types. I probably could have left them to dry for longer as well, so what I am going to do now is leave these to dry fully, and yeah, we'll have a look at them once they are fully dry, maybe even tomorrow, just to see what the overall permanent effect is of the streak and grime technique. Great though, I've said the word fun a lot here, this is a fun technique, really enjoyable, kind of organic, and you know, not too stressy, so I would highly recommend it. You could absolutely let these dry and then go in and do a little bit of highlighting on there, whether dry brush or with a brush. You would absolutely be rewarded for that, and I think you could really push the contrast by doing that. Some scratches would be amazing too, especially on this guy. I think he'd really show them very nicely. So yeah, streak and grime, who knew that it was amazing? Okay, so streak and grime done. He's been scraped, looks way older and more haggard. And my neighbour started drilling. Fantastic. Okay, so there we are, scraped, haggard and battered. That's worked really well. That's added so much age and character to it. Haven't done the scratches all over, but the back looks pretty wicked with all that age added in. I love streak and grime. Okay, so I have been quickly applying some of the other options from AK just to add a little bit of depth. I've made a mistake though, so I thought I'd show you what the mistake was so you can avoid doing it. So I've taken my crusted rust deposits from the side here. This is a concentrate. Take it from there, otherwise you'll end up with something that obliterates everything around and behind it. All right, that's it. I'm going to pretend that I'm coming to you from a gallery. I've picked the most scenic bit that I can. So things have been quite hectic for us recently. We lost Ronan, our editor, who we do miss dearly. He's gone on to new pastures though, so I am editing as well as recording as well as trying to bring out several new products to market that we are working on at the moment. So recording time has been pretty slim, as well as editing time, which we've added to my list of things to do. So that's why things have been a little bit slower. We're working on a couple of things at the moment to speed that up to the best of our ability. So please bear with us, and thank you for your patience whilst bearing with us while we are working all that stuff out. We've got some amazing ideas for the future. We had 2 great suggestions that we're going to reward from the Navigator Edition competition for suggestions for future content. They were basically neck and neck for so long we thought it seemed unfair to award any one of them. I think one's now 2 above the other or something like that. They're both great suggestions. Get in contact with the email below and we will send you out your Navigator Edition of your choosing and a texture palette as well. Keep the suggestions, comments and criticisms flowing and coming. You know, even if it's about what background music I chose to use for this video or something like that. I've got thick skin, try and be nice, but you know, pop it in, we'll take them all on board. We've got plenty of exciting stuff planned for the near future. We're also hoping to attend as many shows now that the world is a bit more open. So as soon as we know the shows that Artis Opus is going to be attending, I will let people know on the channel, in case that means that viewers from abroad have the opportunity to come for a demo in person or something like that, because we love doing stuff in person. It's so nice that it's back on the agenda now, and we're really looking forward to it. That's about it, really. We kind of finished off using some other AK Interactive products in exactly the same way we use the streaking grime. So we didn't airbrush it on, we just blobbed it on with a brush but then removed it in the same fashion. If you'd like to see more videos on that type of stuff in the future, let us know as well. That's it, guys. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, hit that bell notification, and thank you so much for helping us get to 50,000 subscribers. We appreciate each and every one of you. Keep the comments and suggestions coming, and the channel will end up it'll just continue evolving to be the best type of content it can be for you, the viewers, which is why we do it. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next video.